So good afternoon all together. As always, the GDPR disclaimer: if you don't want your name, your face, your questions asked, or any other personal detail being accessible to others, please disconnect now, since this meeting is now being recorded. All right, Enable Now, knowledge transfer session. Originally planned as what's new for 2002. Guess what? There is no 2002. This is why it's now what's new in 1911 hotfix, because that's something that we really have to talk about. The hotfix gave us some bad times between Christmas and New Year, and even the month later. So there is things to discuss, and you should know those things regarding the discussions with your customers, because the upgrade to the 1911 hotfix is more than recommended in some conditions. But let's see what we have on the agenda for today. Since it's a hotfix, there will be no features, so not that much to talk on that side. We're going to talk about the general change of the release cycle of Enable Now, which was officially communicated already, but not as prominent as we would probably wanted it to be. So I will show you where it was and that it was communicated to all the customers proactively. Nevertheless, no one knows. I will show you in a second how and why. Then we talk about the 1911 hotfix as such, discuss the bugs that have been fixed, and especially talk about the launcher, the nonce token functionality that was implemented, and what you have to consider to take a decision in regards of your customer if you have issues with 1911 GA release from November still. Then we talk about the download, because the hotfix was released on-prem as well, but based on the funny sense of humor of some of our colleagues, it was not declared as a hotfix, so no one found it. I will just show you where it is. And then one off-topic topic that I wanted to bring to the agenda, simply because there is time today, is the media object conversion SAP node and the script related to the node. I personally believe that this is something that is important to understand, and I just want you to understand the importance of the fact to use media objects and the risks that come with the script. But we're going to see that at the end of the session in concrete examples, and I will send you all the links later, as always. Okie dokie. As always, you are all on mute, but feel free to unmute yourself if there is any questions at any time. We have plenty of time at the end, but nevertheless, jump in wherever you want. So, release cycle. First of all, yes, the customers were informed, and the distribution list was the newsletter distribution list from InfoCenter. And what I realized in this context is that I have been personally kicked out from the newsletter lately because of GDPR compliance reasons. So the newsletter dispatcher was completely dumped. So if you don't receive any newsletters anymore, and you just have to sign in again to the newsletter list in InfoCenter. So InfoCenter, on the top, there is the newsletter, then you click the subscribe button. After that, you will receive the emails again. I personally was out of the list as well for at least half a year. As soon as you receive them again, you will always receive mails with this header. This is the official Enable Now availability announcements. This is where releases are announced. This is where preview period starting timestamps are communicated, where the roadmap renewals are communicated officially. And this is where this sentence was in. Yeah. Based on customer feedback, Enable Now releases will occur twice per year instead of 4. Yeah, in the middle of that paragraph, not bold, no nothing. So easily to read over. However, it was. So it's not 4, it's 2 from now on, and most likely it will be May and November. Maybe June and December, plus minus. However, if you have plannings to consider regarding updates on customer side, or plan network impact peaks for desktop assistant updates, for whatever reason, this is your scheduling foundation. We're going to have 2 releases. One official one will come 05, one official one will come 11. Good news for the Web Assistant folks. Web Assistant release cycle will stay independent from Enable Now's general release cycle. So there will be, in an agile way, Web Assistant code updates once a while. Same thing. Please resubscribe if you are gone from the list. Resubscribe to the newsletter, because there is a Web Assistant release newsletter which is independent from the official one that announces them. They are not plannable, but that doesn't matter. They don't have to. Okay, so now it's official. We're gonna have 2 releases per year only. I believe this is good news, because as we know, the last couple of releases were not as robust as we wanted them to be. So we just hope that we can provide better quality for new features if we give the quality assurance guys double the time for testing. Good. Questions here? No. Then let's proceed. And the famous 1911 hotfix, which substituted the 2002 release, is summarized within an SAP node. Node number is here, 288-6252. Let's check what's in there. So what we have here is the SAP Enable Now 1911 hotfix node. We skip 1 and 2. We're going to go into details here in a second, but let's talk about the fixes first, which are minor in comparison with 1 and 2. The Enable Now producer freeze when inserting links. Most of you that are either in cloud on 1911 or updated on-prem to 1911, having customers with larger work areas, where larger is not somehow operationable. It's just a random figure. At a certain amount of entities, it starts becoming an issue. Producer froze when you tried to create a work area internal relative link, which was not nice. That's fixed for sure. A big one was the first one regarding the desktop assistant startup. That was really something that fell on our feet heavily. Yeah, that was one of the triggers for the hotfix actually, which was the fact that the caching in desktop assistant, both on-prem and cloud, for the lesson.js file, which is the index file, the cluster file for desktop assistant, was simply not working at all. So for each and every request from the server, the lesson.js file was loaded again and again and again and again per server. So what usually happens once every publication happened once every click, which led to huge impacts on customers' networks, which was not nice. So that led to downtime. So if you have those issues in place in your projects, please be aware that an update is absolutely mandatory. There is no other way to get that tackled, and we really got harsh criticism from network people and network administrators, because we really were chatty like hell. So we really ate too much bandwidth. 1911 hotfix is fixing that. A minor one in comparison is the fact that the sidebar disappeared in some conditions in some specific operational system. And C++ mixes, but that was very seldom in comparison. But the lesson.js caching bug was an important one. Another minor was a documentation fix with too many line breaks in some document types. Okay, that was fixed. And probably if you have customers using Chrome as a standard browser, which is always up to date, we have this famous Chrome 80 build cookie specification change. If this is all Spanish villages for you, don't worry, just Google for Google Chrome version 80 and the same site issue, and you will get an explanation. For our purposes, and what we have to know is there is no issue anymore after the hotfix was implemented. The Enable Now trainer will write cookies just in the way that Chrome build number 80 will accept them properly without any hiccups, and they are interpretable again. Yeah, our issue was actually that if cookie-based tracking was active or automatic tracking was active and cookies won, that the tracking cookies were written in a way that Chrome prevented them from being reread in the next session. So basically, cookie-based tracking didn't work at all for a certain period of time, but only for Chrome version 80. Good, so that was the minor portion, and now the big one, which is 1 and 2, the launcher. With 1911, we implemented so-called nonce tokens, which is a temporary token approach, which is a mandatory security measure for SAP cloud clients. But there was a big mistake made, and that was that the time frame that this nonce token that keeps a session alive will stay alive was hard-coded to a certain amount of seconds, which was absolutely nonsense, because even with quite good bandwidth equipment, downloading producer in any case will take longer than that period was. And even for desktop assistant client in an update situation, it was hard to stay in that specific time frame. So that led to the fact that we had outages in productive systems, especially when desktop assistant was involved. That was a bug in the launcher app. So, and now comes the part where you really have to take care in communication and really be proactive and discuss that with the customer's IT folks, is the fact that if the launcher 1911 from December has been rolled out and there are issues, and you have to uninstall it and then roll the 1911 hotfix launcher out actively again. If you still run on 1908 launcher, there is another reason why you should implement the hotfix, because then there is the so-called supported feature section in Manager, which is the same as the expert features in Producer, where you can add launcher 1908, which will make the 1911 hotfix Manager server backward compatible to the 1908 launcher. That reduces the pain a bit. So this sets the whole authentication back to the time before a nonce token was implemented. In any case, if 1911 launcher was rolled out, you have to remove it and replace it with a hotfix launcher, because 1911 launcher for sure has a bug. And there is no other reverse compatibility granted anyhow, except using that supported features flag here. So really take care. This is important. This is a must do. And this whole hiccup regarding the launcher led to starting issues for cloud desktop components, because that timeout was not long enough. And now, since the release, it's just the validity timeout that you can configure in the settings, so you can adjust that time properly to the network specification of your customer, and everything should be fine again afterwards. Just because I'm curious, anybody having had any issues regarding launcher usage with 1911 so far? Do you have concrete action points here? Obviously not. Are you still awake?
Yep, I am. No, it does seem to fix the launcher issues. I used to get them a lot. Yeah. And since the fix went in, I've not had any launcher issues. Still got timeout issues on the server, but not launcher issues.
And then you should then configure the session timeout range and make it a bit higher. Yeah, because there was a change as well in this context. So the complete session management changed. So maybe a value that worked before needs to be a little higher now.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the one. Thanks, Doug. Good. So now you know. Mea culpa, and very sorry about what happened. I hope there were no long-term outages for end users. Hopefully, I had some for desktop assistant users, where we had desktop assistant taken offline for a month now, which is not a good one. Okay, but most likely will not happen anymore. For all of you using Launcher and making the customer IT roll out the Launcher, please be aware of one fact which is not written here, but is written in the Launcher documentation that you can download on help.sap.com. The Launcher will auto-update itself, but only if it is installed in the user context. Usually, if IT rolls applications out, they are going to install them in the all users context, which means making an application available for any person logging into that physical machine, which makes sense. But not in our case, because then the auto update functionality will not work, which forces the customer IT to update the package each time there is a fix on Launcher. So if you now are about to talk to the customer client IT anyway about this, your proposal should be to deploy them via SSCM or any other software distribution mechanism to really validly be able to prove that any of the machines involved is able to use the functionality, but using the single user context and not the all users context for the sake of auto updatability. And after that, the Launcher application will update itself, and stuff like was happening with 1911 in December will not happen anymore. All right, so next one. The mentioned funny sense of humor. We had a hotfix with 05 called HF1. We had an hotfix with 02, which was called, guess what? HF1. We had a hotfix with 11, which was called nothing. So the only indicator would be the patch level and the release date. If you look to the list, and that happened to a lot of my customers, they said there is no hotfix. Yes, yeah, it was one. That's the indicator. Patch level is 1, and the release date is not November last year, but February this year. Okay, so it's on the road since the 13th of February. Sorry for that. At least it should be consistent. I don't know in which way they will go, but it is as it is. Good, so download is there. On-prem can be updated anytime. Clouds are updated already. We discussed the necessity of discussing the Launcher upgrades with the customer IT in detail. I believe that was it. So anything around 1911 that you want to add or mention? Otherwise, we can proceed towards the conversion script. No. Good. So speaking in Monty Python's words, now something completely different. Media object converter. Before 1905, there was no media object, or was it 1902? I'm not sure. And the media object was created for a certain purpose. We were discussing about that in the What's New session, where it was invented intensely. Nevertheless, just to wrap it up again, the bad side of media usage in Enable Now before this particular release, when media objects were invented, was that the address of a media was always a relative address to its parent object, because there were no real entities. So in that screenshot cutout, this chart.png, which was a regular old-fashioned media, we called them media attachments, was a child of a slide. And that means that address of this chart.png image was always relative to the slide, which led to the fact that addressing them is always relative to the parent. I could not just take the image and move it somewhere else, because I want to probably restructure or sort my media library. Yeah, so any movement of media within a structure immediately led to the fact that any usage of it was broken, but there was no announcement and no nothing, and basically no proper automatable way to resolve that, to analyze the impact of something like that properly, except using the reference wizard, but that would have to be done one by one, no? Image per image, which is kind of a nightmare job. So that's the reason why media object was invented. They look different, and they have one big difference, which is they are real entities. So they are, from an entity priority perspective within the data model, they have the same the same character as a project or a group or a text unit. They are grown-up objects now with own UIDs. That means where they live in the tree doesn't matter, just like the others. There's only relations stored, but moving stuff around and creating proper media libraries is easy. Yeah, so this is the reason why we should go for media objects. So, and now comes the challenge. What if your customer is working with Enable Now since years and already is using a properly built media library, but since there were no real media objects, they are all built out of assessments. And now they want to switch the whole thing and create a media library based on media objects to take advantage of all the new possibilities that you got. And therefore we got a script. Yeah, and that some of you might already have seen it or stumbled upon it by accident. However, and this is something that I would suggest you actively propose to your customers, because it's a beauty, and it cleans up whole work areas in one run. It converts all the media attachments into real media objects in one run, and optionally it stores them in a media library folder, so you can even change the structures within your work area by this script. It's a powerful thing, but, and that's the reason why I added this sentence to the note and to the script as such. This script is, and this is an honest statement, for very experienced Enable Now users only. Yeah, that's for you guys. You don't put that in the hands of a customer and say, go ahead and do it, because it definitely is able to destroy a whole work area irreversibly. Yeah, there is no undo. If it's gone, it's gone. No, I don't want to panic, but please be aware that this could happen. Yeah, so what you please do is, if you run it for the first time, you make yourself familiar with it and execute it in a copy of your managed work area before you execute it on a productive instance. So let's see what it does. There is my test structure. It was a complete blank work area here. And there we got a slide, and this slide uses an image. And this image was directly attached to the slide. Indicated by the usage counter here with the link icon. That means this is linked once. Nevertheless, it's just an attachment to the slide. When I'm going in here, I see the slide. I can move the image around, but if I would remove it and let's say store it here, going back to my slide, will lead to a file not found. Yeah, this is the corruption that happens if you move media around, which are not real media objects because they have no entity ID. Moving it back will fix the issue, but imagine you have a media library with a couple of thousand images. This is not an option. So it's back. Okay. Same thing I did for a recording. Within that recording, I used those three, as you see here in the usage counter, those three images from that dummy media library here, which are also assessment attachments, meaning I couldn't just move them away from here and store them somewhere else, because then the usage within that recording would be broken. It doesn't matter how complex or how deep your tree is. Now let's see what the script does. This is my placeholder for my new media library that I want the script to build for me. I can upload you that example, including the script later, if you want to play yourself. So let's see. If you import the script from the node, you will find in the support script section a new functionality called convert assets. Here we go. It's the warning again. And then you have 1 to 3 complexity levels within the script with properties. You keep your hands off the expert section for now. Within the script, there is a readme txt as well, but please read it before you start using it. Yeah, that makes total sense. It's a proper documentation about the functionality. But what does it do? Import assets. Yeah? Import the assets that come from somewhere. Where do we start? In my test tree. And convert the media from there as well. Yeah, so I want to convert all my objects and I want to import those assets. And where do I want to import them to? My media library folder will be my new media library. Yeah, and then just to be on the safe side, I want to delete all the imported stuff. So what I'm expecting now is that it recursively crawls through the test tree, identifies all media usages for any media which is part of that subtree, converts the media attachment into a real media object, changes the link used within the content objects, whether it's a slide or a recording, into a link to the converted media object, and then delete the old attachment and store the new media attachments in here. Let's see. It crashes. Cool. In the morning, it worked fine. That's what they always say, right?
A quick side note while you do that. Hi, Mike, this is Caroline.
I reckoned your voice.
If you have the producer in a different language than English, then last time I tried it, there was no translation and it looked really weird. So you couldn't really run the script. So make sure you put your producer into English before you go to the tools menu.
Good one. I didn't realize that there was no UI thing, but most likely this only happens if your secondary language was not set to English. Otherwise, it should always draw English as a fallback if there is nothing else.
Probably, yes.
Yeah, the fallback is the secondary one. So, folks, this is what happened. My old media library is now empty, nothing in there anymore. Going into my slide, we still see my image. You believe me that the same happened for the recording, and my new media library just starts with media, and then there is no specific sorting algorithm or whatever. It just says media type and then puts them in, and from there everything else is handwork, but it's now robust. Moving this image around to anywhere else will not lead to any failure. My image will still be there. Why is that? Because a media object has a distinct UID and an own deep link, so it can be addressed just like the other objects. Here we go. That's the entity type media that was invented, and that's what the script does. And it's really a robust thing. It will not work for a 40,000 object tree. In that case, you have to do it partly one by one. You will have to find out what the threshold is. I don't know for sure. Maybe 5,000, maybe 6,000. I don't know. I just realized at one customer that there is one because we had a bit more than 10,000 objects, and there was an overflow happening at the moment in time where I tried to execute it. The second thing that you please keep in mind, and this is why I'm emphasizing on reading the documentation before playing around. Within the script, you have two options. You can use the import route for content conversion and the convert route for the conversion of media objects and the import route for the content. So even if your customer is already using a media library, those two can point to different folders and it still works fine. That was made by intention. In the first one, that looks a bit weird, but if you want to do it partly, then you could make the one point to the media library and the other point to the to be converted content, and then it will be resolved. if you do it that way, and if you do it in parts, in little slices, be aware, and that's properly documented in that readme txt as well, that the script even stores the relations. So let's pretend that you have big courses and you want to go course by course, but all the courses, they have specific media and they have media that they all have in common. If it was once converted in course 1, and then you would start converting course 2, all the common used assets would already have been converted, which would lead to a failure, because the old attachments would not be there anymore. Good news is the script stores the conversions, and if it passes by the same media again, it will realize, based on this stored CSV file it creates in the producer install menu, that this media already was converted, and then it will just set the pointer to the new media and not trying to reconvert it anymore. And this can be prevented by this. So this is a dangerous one. If you set this one and this one, basically, that will delete this relation cache, and then any usage of old media after conversion will lead to content failure. All right, so this is just one thing I wanted to draw your attention to, because it's a very powerful thing, and if you would try to do that manually, that would be weeks of work, and so it's just a script that has to be used with a bit of caution. Goody, guys, I give you 1.5 hours back, I believe. Sure.
Since there is no mass import of media objects.
Caro, your audibility was not good, so I didn't get anything.
Oh, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Now, yeah, far better.
So since there's no mass imports for media objects, as we had with the old insert file,
the drag and drop functionality will be importing media objects with 2005. That was the original plan, and it simply was forgotten.
Okay.
Yeah. So mass drag and drops, as we did them before, they still create attachments. And with the next official release, 2005, a mass drag and drop will create media objects. And for now, you can use this script after a mass import by just converting.
Okay, so you just import the classic way, and then
Yes.
you do a conversion and you delete the old ones.
Exactly.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, I've got a question. Slightly related to this, and this is a great script. It's much improved on the previous version I saw. So one of the problems that I have is that an author will basically take a Snagit or something and paste an image directly onto the book page, and
Yes.
it doesn't appear as an attachment or anything.
Yes.
It only exists on that book page because they think that's the only time it'll ever be used because it's so unique.
Yes.
And then another author wants to use exactly the same thing. Is there a way to take like a pasted on image and say, okay, this image here, I now want to convert it into a shareable media object?
It is, but it's a tricky one. So let's do it. Let's do a snag. Snagit is refusing to snag. Why is this? Because the capture. There we go. Just a random snag. Copy. Paste. So there we go. This is your scenario.
Correct.
So and this is, as you said, this is the worst case of assets, the worst type. This is an unknown asset. That means it doesn't appear in the tree. It's just a media that is used by the page, but it's not even a separate attached object. The only way to fix that is to go down to the file system, which means from here we go to here. Then we find it. and we will use it from there and drag it in. And then you replace this reference with a new imported reference, and then it works. That's the only way, but there's no automation.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Anything else I can help with? All right. In that case, good luck with your 1911 upgrades and stuff. Next week, Friday, we got an open office hour session on Friday forenoon for the MEE region. MEE, no, for all the regions, but MEE will be hosted by myself. EMEA North will be hosted by Bomjo Kim, the new EMEA North Enable Now champion. She will introduce herself to you within that session. And for the other regions, everything stays unchanged. The next bigger session, the next 4-hour knowledge transfer session we will be somewhere in March, dealing with LMS integration testing, and SCORM from a theoretical perspective. So this will be an important one, I guess. And then after that, I will analyze our topic thread again. What I lately read is that most likely we're going to go into details regarding the web assistant again. So web assistant implementation and web assistant configuration was a big requested topic. But anyway, just want to emphasize on GEM again, please keep that thread alive. And if you see any topics that you are heavily interested in, please put them into the thread. This will be my source to choose the topics for the upcoming sessions from. Another one is I really need your input regarding the delivery documents for the new services. You should all know where you find the stuff in Learning Hub, in the subroom of the Enable Now room. There is this accelerator repository where you now, since week before last week, you can download the beta of the strategy phase delivery document. All the slides that you've ever seen from me are in there, in a structured way. You will find this, the strategy workshop slide deck proposal. I need input to improve this. Yeah, so please drop me a line and let me know what you think about the material. No? Otherwise, we cannot improve it. So that was it from my end. If there is nothing else from yours, I wish you a beautiful weekend. And we talk next week, Friday, the latest.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Thanks, bye.
Cheers, bye.
Thank you, Michael.